Shabbat Shalom. Good morning. Good Sabbath to all who make the Sabbath a delight, who understand that the Creator of the universe has set us set us apart to have a weekly meeting with Him, a weekly gathering at His throne, around His throne, with Him and with other people, as the case may be, as we are allowed to do so, in order to refresh, renew, and delight in who He is. If we ever forget that that's what the Sabbath is about, not about our meeting schedule or about our teaching or our learning schedule that we have in mind, as much a part of the system that as that may be, the key factor is to engage the Creator of the universe and let Him engage us. Let His kingdom come and His will be done in our thought processes, in our words, our speech, our interactions with our fellow man. Let the hurt, the woundedness, the brokenness, the calluses that we have obtained over the course of the past week go, and let Him begin to debride our wounded or decaying tissue, as it were, in a medical sense, but in a spiritual sense, to begin to refresh and renew us to be and to serve as He called us to be and to serve. This week we have the privilege, the joy of gathering together through the internet, and I bless you if you allowed me to join you, if you've allowed me to come into your house, your car, your computer, your smartphone, whichever medium you're receiving this message from. Thank you for joining me or letting me join you. And as we celebrate and delight in this Sabbath time together and this discussion of the beauty of the majesty of the Creator and His words of instruction and life for this world and for us, may you let me know if you're joining us. Let me know your name, where you are, what country, what city, if you're in, if you can, and what your prayer requests, what your prayer needs, what your praise reports might be, what your comments might be. We are a community. We are the children of the living God, and we have the privilege of getting to know each other in this medium as well as person, hopefully one day. But for right now, we are at a time, and we are focusing on a particular section, as usual, of Torah. The Torah is a continuing narrative. It is unlike the way the Bible is treated by some religions or other faiths treat their holy books. The Torah is a continuing narrative. It is our story. It's not just a bunch of wisdom writings collected and put down. It is a continuing saga of the story of God-man relationships. It is our go-to history book, but it's more than a history book. It is the identity. It is the mirror that we look into to see who we are, how we became who we are, what our DNA strands are, and what our calling is, what our purpose in this world is, how the world got to where it is, and what we can do about it. So as we get into Parsha 18, Mishpatim, I encourage you to open the book with me. I encourage you to seek other materials. If you need more details about the study, as I mentioned last week, you can always go to the biblicallifestylecenter.org. That's biblicallifestylecenter.org, to the Rabbi Sun page, and then there's a section for you to access the archives. I do 6 studies per week. An introduction to start on your first day of the week, Sunday, and then one each day. They were designed for homeschool purposes, so they're fairly detailed, and 15 to 20 pages apiece, and so it's a lot of material. Take as much as you wish. But now that I've said that, the key is we get this chance to have this discussion online. We get the chance to discuss the Torah, and we'll cover it in a broad brush. The details are in the daily studies, but this is a broad brush drash, as it's called in Hebrew, sort of a download of what is most important and will inspire, hopefully, and encourage and empower us most. Let's join together and let's do it. Parsha Mishpatim is found at Exodus 21:1 through 24:18. It's 4 chapters. and it is at a critical location in the great flowing narrative. It is at Mount Sinai. It's within the first few weeks of Mount Sinai. And so we're going to be here at Sinai for 11 months. From the first day of the third month of the biblical calendar to the 10th day of the 12th month of the of the second month, of the next year. So if you understand that we're going to be here a long time, but this 11 month is really going to make up about 1/3 of the entire Torah. 59 chapters of the entitled 187 chapters of Torah take place at this location. You understand? We're in a significant time. This is the most significant download of wisdom and revelation from heaven to earth in any holy writ, in any form of writing. So this is the Creator of the universe speaking things to us that are to change us and change the world. And what He's doing this week, beloved, if you will receive it, if you'll open your hearts, is He is giving us a troubleshooting manual for this thorn and thistle world in which we live. You understand, we do not live in Gan Eden. We don't live in the Garden of Eden. We don't live in any form of utopia. We don't live in an ideal society. We live amongst real people. We face real situations, many of which are difficult, many of which are downright dangerous. We have to deal with people who are broken, people who are toxic. We have to deal with situations and places that have been corrupted. We have to deal with these things, and now the key is the Holy One knows that, and He put us here for such a time as this, in this thorn and thistle world, to make everything we touch a little bit better. But we have to overcome our own toxicity and our own destructiveness and our own corruption to do that. The biggest place we've been corrupted, dear ones, is in our minds. We think we know things we do not know. We have opinions that we value very highly based on facts we consider facts that are not facts. We argue over our opinions. We argue over other people's opinions. We fight at the drop of a hat or argue at the drop of a hat over some ideological, political theory, economic theory, some issue of who's to blame and who's at fault and what should happen to them. We argue over this stuff, and He says, if you don't understand your own corruption, how can you heal anyone else's? If you don't understand what is lost in you, what is broken in you, what has caused damage in you, how can you appreciate and understand the things that other people that you're called to be ministering to in healing and health and redemption and restoration? How can you understand how they need to be healed and what needs to be done for their healing? So He gives us this Parsha Mishpatim as a troubleshooting manual for our thorn and thistle world. The Creator of the universe cares about us. He cares about you. He cares about your family and your bloodline. He cares about the place in which you live, and the houses and the streets and the vehicles, from every level of society in your place. He cares greatly about it. He desires there to be a redemptive, restorative process involved in mind and ongoing. And He wants a people, a nation, a called and redeemed people to join Him in that process. So He is about to download from us, to us, wisdom from on high. Great wisdom, beautiful words, beautiful messages, deeper things than we can even consider in our minds or in English. We have to go and get reprogrammed in our thinking. Back from a Greek and a Western mindset and an English vocabulary and language approach to the original, the words that He spoke over us in the Hebrew tongue back at Sinai. These are the words that have power and life. We're going back to Yehi Or in every one of its aspects and its permutations as He adapted them to our situation. So we're getting wisdom from on high, understanding from our Creator, King's throne. You see, for every problematic situation that fallen men can create, the Holy One provides a pathway that leads to redemption. Every problematic situation that fallen man can create, beloved, the Holy One provides a pathway that leads to redemption. Some will call it, I like to call it the Romans 8:28 road, as he works all things together for good, for tov, for those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. There is always a pathway forward that has redemption and restoration and healing in it. We just have to get in touch with that and avoid thinking through our thought processes, our logic, our reason, our theory, our theology, our pathology, our philosophy, our education systems, and thinking we can reason our way into this. No, the creator of the universe's words, his directives will take us through if we follow them. So here we are in Parsha Mishpatim, and this is installment number 6 in the Great Nation Building Chronicles. As we've been discussing what he has been doing, is fulfilling his promise to Abraham to make of his seed a great nation. This great nation is to be a model nation to the world in its fallenness, in its failures, in its sinfulness. We also have the same toxicity of fallen men that everyone else does, and that's why we're qualified to be able to get above the world's things. Whenever he touches us, when he breathes his breath of life upon us, when he puts his words into our hearts and our mouths, and whenever he enlivens us and quickens us with his breath and his spirit, and he calls us and directs us forward, then we can take the knowledge that we know of what it's like to be a fallen person who makes mistakes and begin to bring light and healing and redemption and restoration into other people's lives when they're broken and they don't know how to get it. So here we are in installment 6 in the B'nai Israel Chronicles. There's so many more installments to come, so many lessons we need to learn to be able to function effectively as this great nation, as the holy nation, as the light of the world, light to the nations. Yes, the Mamlaket Kohanim, we taught this last, the kingdom of priests, of royal ambassadors that display and speak his words into the world. His Goy Kadosh, his holy nation. Yes, all these things we're called to be. This is the process of getting us there. Well, as the time has come, as we say, this Torah is a continuing saga that just keeps growing. It's in sequence as it's given to us for a strategic reason. We come to the place where we are at Sinai getting to know our King, getting used to the sound of his voice, getting acclimated to his glory realm, to his beauty realm, to his wisdom realm, because we have been so caught up. We have listened to so much trash, so much filth. We've listened to so much profanity. We've listened in our Egypts where we come from, in our fallen portions of the world, and the cesspools that we live in of society and culture and ethnicity and philosophy and education and religion, all these areas that we've in, we have been slimed with filth. But we are getting to know our King, and he is holy and righteous. He is good. He is benevolent. He is inspiring. He is enlivening, and we are getting to know him. And he is beginning to tell us his voice. Let us know his voice and his words, and we have learned to follow his voice and learn to listen, to tune out other voices that don't measure up, that are just not going to get us where we need to go. So here we are. It's time to get to know our King at a deeper level. Are you ready to go into a deeper level of relationship, to push that relationship envelope, or actually let him do this? Are you ready to surrender more parts of your life, more parts of your thinking, more parts of your emoting, your feelings, your ways of reacting to situations and people? Are you ready to let him come in and begin to heal you and restore you? Oh, beloved, please let him do that. Let this conversation that we're having together be the impetus or the catalyst to cause you to open these lines of communication with him and let him speak. He is glorious. He is beautiful, and he is the healer. Well, he has been revealing himself to us, letting us get to know him step by step. First came in the book of Exodus at least, first came the glorious vision. He revealed to us that there is more to life than just day after day fighting the struggles, doing the dog-eat-dog of, and listening to all the drama and the trauma and the scandal and the warmongering and the hate-mongering and the race baiting and the ethnicity pride and all the stuff that people do. There's so much more to that. There is a glorious vision released upon the earth by the voice of the Creator. So the first thing we saw, Exodus 6 through 8, I will, he said, I will. And he said it so many times, 8 times basically. And each time he gave us a vision of what he would do. That takes us out of the mundane, takes us out of the situation we're in, a redemption, a restoration, a healing, yes, and then a calling upon our lives. So this first way he's getting us to know him is through showing us his vision for us. Second thing, then he revealed to us his mighty hand and outstretched arm. In Exodus 7 through chapters 7 through 17, he revealed to us miracle after miracle, sign, wonder, awesome strength, his interventions of what he did from the Negaim, the various different surgical strikes on Egypt, to the Sea of Reeds, and providing manna and providing water from a rock. All the things he's done for us to show his mighty hand, his outstretched arm, and his benevolence, his goodness. So we've seen the glorious vision. We've seen the mighty hand and the outstretched arm. And this last week, in Parsha Yitro, in Exodus 20, he began to speak to us uninterrupted, words that not just Moshe could hear, or not just Aaron could hear, or Avram, or one patriarch or another. He spoke in words that the entire body of Bnei Israel, all the 600,000 plus men, and all the women, and all the children, and all the mixed multitude of the different nations who had joined with us to leave Egypt, all could hear. And they spoke these powerful words, powerful voice. And we heard not just the vision secondhand, or saw just the mighty hand and the outstretched arm. We heard the voice itself. I know it was far too powerful for where we were, for what state we're in. It was far too beautiful. The words were far too beautiful for us to comprehend and internalize. They didn't seem to match. The things that he said we would not do, we want to do. The things that he said we would do, we don't really want to do. And so the words were too beautiful for us to comprehend in our fallen, broken state after years and years and decades and generations in Egypt. And so was his powerful voice too majestic, too wonderful, too inspiring, too awe-inspiring for us to be able to sit and listen to. We thought, we'll die if we hear another word. So we ran away. We said, no, let Moshe speak to us, and we will do whatever he says, but do not speak to us again. We were too immature. We were too young. We had no grid for what we had just heard. So here he is. He has shown us his glorious vision. Do you know the glorious vision that he has for you? He has shown us his mighty hand and his outstretched arm. Have you understood that he has worked on your behalf all these years? That's why you are still alive and here with me today. We have heard his powerful voice and his beautiful words. Have those words inspired you? Has that voice called you? Do you hear it calling to you today? Are you willing to respond and listen to that voice? Are you willing to let those words settle out and displace all that negativity of thought and that toxicity of attitude and approach that you have learned in your Egypt? Are you ready for that? Well, now if you are, it's time to be introduced to his mind, the brilliant, beautiful mind of the Creator. He wants to share little portions of that with us. He wants to upgrade our thinking way beyond the fallen part of man who thinks in futile ways and circular reasoning and logic and thinks in opinions and thinks in theories and thinks in those sorts of ways of human understanding. He wants to download from heaven aspects of his own thought processes. Speak to us in such ways that we hear his own thoughts, his own ways of looking at situations and bringing healing to it. Are you ready for that? Well, it is time for the holy nation, the counterculture, to deprogram from the world and reprogram to heaven, to tune in to the sounds of the voice of the Creator and the message that He's speaking for us, the healing message, the redemptive message, not the message of stating the obvious that the world's not right, the message of declaring what can be if we but let Him heal us, let Him touch us. But the question is, are we into this deprogramming, reprogramming system, or are we out? Do we trust Him yet? Do we trust the Creator yet, or do we trust in man's ways? Do we trust in our own ways of dealing with life, our own defense mechanisms? Do we trust in our own boundaries that we set? Do we trust in our own belief system? Do we trust in our own opinions about how the world's to be run? Or do we trust the one who redeemed us from the house of bondage? Have we learned to trust Him yet? Have we trusted Him? Do we trust Him enough to submit to and embrace, and then actually start walking day by day in His radical reprogramming protocols? Have we said, yes, renew my mind. Renew my mind. Take away all the garbage. Take away all the lies of the cultures and the ethnicities and the systems and the educational programs that we've engaged in away from the religion, and now begin to reprogram my mind to think your thoughts, to actually respond to your words as light responded when you said Yehi Or. Well, this kind of trust is a high level of trust. It takes a while to develop. But is there any better enterprise in the world for us to do? It's one thing, you see, to accept the Holy One's help in escaping Pharaoh's clutches, the clutches of the societies and the oppressors that we have in this world. It's one thing to accept His help in escaping those things, but that's not where this is supposed to end. Getting free of those things is just the beginning. It's another thing altogether to trust the Holy One at the level where we give Him authority to intervene and to change every aspect of our thoughts, our lives, and our world. How can we build that level of trust? How can you establish that level of trust? Well, He wants to introduce to us something this week in Parsha Mishpatim, introducing what I call the wonderful counselor aspect of God. The wonderful counselor aspect of God, the brilliant mind, the thoughtful, intentional way of approaching, His beautiful way of approaching and healing the world. He loves His creation, and He does not want to see it just devolve into chaos. He's seen chaos. He's seen tohu vavohu, v'chosek, the without form and voidness of the first day before He said Yehior. He's seen all that. He sees our world in another state. We're going towards that direction again. He says, no, I want you to hear me. I want you to listen to me. He says, I want you to listen to His voice, to His words. And He said, let me heal you and let me put you back on the track to becoming something beautiful. It is good. It is good. And He saw it, and it was good. Well, His introducing the wonderful counselor aspect of His identity requires something from us in response. First of all, we need to acknowledge that the source of the material we're going to be reading is not Moshe, it's not some religion, it's not Judaism, it's not Christianity, it's not some church, it's not some institution, it's not any source, not human or earthly source. The source of this material is the glorious, all-wise one, the Creator of the heavens and the earth. This is who is releasing these materials. And if that's the case, if we have to deal with that, that means we can't argue that it's not appropriate. We can't think we're smarter than it, that we wouldn't do it that way because we're smarter, we're more intelligent. That's the fallenness of man, that we want to argue with everything the Holy One says and believe we're more moral than He is, that we're more illumined than He is, that we're more advanced in our intelligence than He is. If He is the source, then His words are true. His words are real. His words are what matters, and they override all of our opinions, and they override all of our theories, and they override all our religion and all of our doctrines, and they override all of our dogma, and they override all of our ways of doing things, if they are indeed His words, and they are. So the source must be acknowledged. The second thing is we must understand His motive. Why is He doing this? Why is He revealing Himself in this way? Why is He speaking? Why does He keep talking? Why doesn't He just let this world go as it goes and then judge us when it's all over with? No, because He has a motivation in the meantime. His motivation is not to let us go down and devolve into that rat hole, but instead to begin to call us back and bring us back one by one, family by family, household by household, bloodline by bloodline, region by region, situation by situation. So to understand the motivation is to understand the goodness of the wise one. He is not just wise. He is not just creative and intelligent. He is good, and he's benevolent, and he cares about his creation. And all that he does is out of that concern and out of that passion to see a healing and a restoration take place. Are you in with his motivation, or do you question it? Do you still think somehow you're more moral and more good than he is? No. No institution is, no man is, no person is, no society is, no ethnicity is. The Holy One is good. He's benevolent, and his plan will redeem. After learning the source that is the glorious one, the motivation for these words that he's going to speak to us, then the medium. Do we understand that he has chosen to use the Hebrew language? This is his communication protocol. He's chosen to use words that are based upon action, not based upon theology, theory, concepts, or abstracts. He has chosen to speak in terms of real life problems and situations. And that's what we find in Parsha Mishpatim. He addresses real life situations. Things as Tevye and Federer on the Roof might have said, the questions, problems that would cross a rabbi's eyes. Well, that's kind of them. The Holy One says, you think I'm just thinking in terms of abstract and ivory towery stuff? No, I want to talk to you about real life problems in real people's lives, in real situations that would choke a mule, that are really difficult. Because if what I say is not real in the difficult situations, it's not real. If I can't heal, then what am I doing talking to you? So the medium of his Hebrew communication protocols, this is very important. Source, motivation, medium, and then we need to understand and appreciate the issues. Do we know how far man has fallen? Do you know how messed up your mind and your thinking is? Do you know how bad, destructive your emotional matrix is? Do you understand how broken and toxic society and civilization are? Do you understand how weaponized science and medicine and ethnicity and gender and sexuality have become? Do you understand how bad this is? How deeply an intervention is needed from the Holy One? If you do, then understand why he wants to reveal to himself to you as the wonderful counselor. Why he wants to impart to you a part of his beautiful mind. So the issues involved, every situation we face has major issues of human brokenness in it. And he always wants to focus upon not, how horrible it is and how who's to blame for that. He wants to focus on solutions. There is a pathway that leads to redemption and restoration in all those horrible, messed up situations that we face in life. And finally, the message itself. He wants to embrace the message itself. The acceptance and application of his protocols, that he knows what he's doing and he knows how things can be healed. He knows that action, not words, not judgments, not decrees, actions are what does the business. So here we are, and Sinai is happening. What a beautiful thing. If you can imagine yourself, beloved, just close your eyes and imagine you were in this environment, this supercharged spiritual environment of Mount Sinai. And he has just spoken these 10 words that are just, they resound through the air and the atmosphere. And now he's going to come behind those 10 words. He's going to begin to flesh out what real life situations. Whenever those things, those 10 beautiful pillars of life as it's supposed to be on earth are not fulfilled, how we fix the problems that result from that brokenness. Sinai is happening, and it is a big deal. We get to participate in it. We get to read 59 chapters out of the 187 of Torah's chapters are based upon what happened here at Sinai, and these messages that the Creator of the universe has given to us to reveal that he is the wonderful counselor. This 11 2/3 moon cycles that we will be here will dramatically change the world. It is supposed to dramatically change us. Every download is supposed to dramatically change us. We arrived at this place, Rosh Chodesh Sivan, in the year of the Exodus, the first day of the third moon cycle of the year of the Exodus, and we will leave the next year, the second month, almost 12 months, the 20th of ER, the 20th of the second month, in Numbers 10, verse 11. So that's the time. All aboard, beloved, for the great Sinai adventure, the great reveal of the Holy One, who he is, what he wants to do, how he wants to heal the world and fix the world, and how he wants us to participate. All aboard for the great Sinai adventure. The season we're going to spend here is the most glorious season of mankind's existence. We get to read about it all these weeks every year. Short of the Messiah's millennial reign, next to that, this is the most glorious season of mankind's existence, the most downloads from heaven. But we must not let it go to our heads that we're participating in this. And we must not think of ourselves more highly than we ought. His will is what matters. The adventure that we're having is not about us. It is about him. It is about his plans for mankind and for creation. The secret of Sinai, you see, is Creator speak. Creator speak. The voice of the Creator of the universe rings out over the earth, over human beings, into cultures, over the mountains and the hills, and to the nations, over the physical geographical locations, into the eretz, the dirt, the stone, the waters of the earth. And the Creator speak permeates. And as a result of the Creator speak at Mount Sinai, everything in the world has changed and is changing. There is a hope of redemption because Creator has given us Sinai. The Creator speak means that the narrative of Torah, the season of Creator speak, means that the narrative of Torah is less about men of renown and more about empowering downloads that flow straight from the throne. The rivers of living water, the trees that grow beside the rivers. This is about Creator speak. Are you hungry for Creator speak? When your Creator talks to you, the voice of the beloved, the voice of the Almighty, the voice of your covenant partner of heaven, the voice of your mentor and the master under this apprentice program. There's more empowering downloads straight from the throne. That's what the Creator Speaks season is about. It's also about less information and education, less logic and reason, and more smooth flowing, sweet, healing revelation. Revelation instead of information and education. And finally, instead of the tohu vavohu vachosek that everybody wants to talk about and everybody thinks they can see with their natural eyes and think they're intelligent because they can see the obvious, the tohu vavohu vachosek, without form and void and dark of this world, that takes no real insight, no real discernment. What takes spirituality, as Creator speak, to say into that situation, whatever it may be, Yehior, let there be light. And let that light lead you into the path of redemption. So here we are. We've just had the great betrothal narrative, the 10 words spoken over us, the debrot that the Holy One spoke, that to give us the vision of who we're to be and how we're to be different than the rest of the world, how we're to deprogram and defrag from the things of the world. Wow, it's incredible. I won't go back over the 10 words. You know what they are, right? What we're not to do, what we are to do, who we are, who He is to us. These things were in the 10 words. Now we have to face the fact that we're not ready for that yet, and the world is certainly not there. And so we have to deal with the situations that result because of that brokenness in the world and even in ourselves. And so He gives us this Mishpatim discourse. He's speaking Creator speak. And these words from chapter 21 through 23, all the way through 24 for that matter, are primarily, if not completely. There's only one little short section when Moshe is giving a narrative of going up the mountain and the things he did whenever he got everybody prepared for him to leave to go up the mountain. That's at in chapter 24. But everything else is Creator speak. Words directly from the throne. Powerful words like Yehior that have that energy. If you can't see it, let Him receive it. After this, we're going to go to the heavenly courts narrative after the Mishpatim discourse. The heavenly courts narrative. Then the Mishkan. We'll go into the story, the chapter upon chapter. The Holy One will speak after speak, telling us about how to connect with Him, how to have a communication protocol with Him, and protocols of accountability and protocols of briefing, where we will keep on in tune with who He is. Then we'll get the golden calf narrative to see what happens whenever we don't follow that protocol, how much toxicity we can create if we don't follow his patterns. Then he will give us the midot download. That's the download of his attributes: merciful, compassionate, slow to anger, faithful to covenant. It goes on and on from Exodus 34. He's going to tell us who he is, and that will draw us back and heal us. And then we'll get the Mishkan discourse and narrative whenever he begins to talk about how it's built, how we build this tabernacle and this communication system and this interaction process. And then in Leviticus, we'll go through the Korbanot discourse, the idea of how we approach and breach the gap between our broken fallenness and his glory and his majesty and his holiness. And then we'll go to the priestly consecration, how we become a kingdom of priests, what our consecration protocols are, what we have to lay aside and put away in order to become the kingdom of priests he called us to be. Finally, not finally, but then we go to the Kedusha discourse, Leviticus 11:1 through 24:53, the longest discourse of Torah, the discussion about how we actually begin to appropriate and walk in and flow in and emit the Kedusha energy of heaven. That is Leviticus 11:1 through 24:53. What a beautiful passage. And then he gives us discussions about the land of promise and awakens our mind to the goal or the objective of where we're going. And then he begins to prepare us for travel there. That's the Numbers 1 through chapter 10. Okay, so this is what's coming. This is what's happening at Sinai. This is the Sinaitic download. The secret of Sinai, as we said, is the fact that this is the place of Creator speak. This is where we connect most fully to. He's spoken a few words here or there. He's spoken to Avram. He spoke to Yitzhak. But he didn't go through these great. He spoke to Moshe. But he hasn't gone through these great long discourses of releasing Hebrew wisdom and Hebrew understanding of who the wonderful counselor is and what the wonderful counselor does and how he wants us to participate. So he's going to begin to introduce us to his 10 tools of his toolkit. He is the wonderful counselor, and he has 10 types of approaches. And I won't go through the details. I'll just give you a couple of examples. Not only does he have Mishpatim, which are, we're going to talk about what that may be, special guidelines that are set in specific situations to help us to think through the problems and learn how to approach the challenges of human life when it's broken. We get to Devarim, the words, Dibrot, the Brits, the covenant commitments, all from his side and our side. Things that he speaks include mitzvot, commandments as are read in English, but those places where he will join us and we'll accomplish things together. Hukot or hukim, it could be called either one, male or female. But a huk is something that he speaks to do, and we do because of his voice is so beautiful to us and his relationship is so precious to us. We don't even have to ask why. We just do it. Derek, he has his ways. Torah, his instructions, his protocols of how to accomplish specific purposes and engage with certain conditions and situations and circumstances. He has idut, which are testimonies, things that we remember and we learn the lessons of. We take lessons from his stories, like the stories of the patriarchs and the stories of our deliverance from Egypt, and on and on and on. And then he has pekudim. He has, whenever he musters us and gets us together and calls us and begins us to focus and make us a community. And then he has charges, specific things he tells us to do, assignments as it might be. These are all different tools he has in his Creator Speak toolkit. He is a master creator, and that creation, if we understand that each of these different tools, like a tool in a carpenter's toolkit or tool belt, or like any other artisan, each of these tools has a specific purpose and works in a specific context, and we'll see all of those at Sinai. All of them will come to us at Sinai. Well, what is the appropriate covenant response when the Holy One speaks to Creator Speak? It's spoken for you. In this parsha in Exodus 24:7. All that the Holy One has said, we will build and make happen and come before people's eyes. And we will shema his voice. We will listen. We will keep tuned in to his specific guidance, his promptings, all the way through as we do these things. Kol asher diber Adonai na'aseh v'nishma. That is the appropriate covenantal response to all of his words, to the wonderful counselor's speech. There are 4 basic focuses of the speech that he's going to do at Mount Sinai. First is he calls us, he describes our mission. He tells us our destiny. And he does so in relation to three different aspects. To the Holy One himself, to him. How is our calling in relation to him? What is our mission in regard to him? What is our destiny in regard to him? And then also beyond all that, to our relationship with the nations, with each other, with the nations, with the peoples of this world. How are we to use our calling, to continue in our calling, work in our mission, and achieve our destiny in the context of dealings with the peoples and the nations. And then finally, of creation itself and time. Time and creation are the areas in which we also have to adjust to seeing his calling, his mission, and our destiny play out in those areas. That's the first focus. The second focus is to get a real handle on fallen man syndrome. Do we understand how bad things are for man? And how difficult that becomes for the creation whenever all creation groans in eager expectation for the sons of God to be revealed. Because they are in futility, and man's thinking causes it to be more futile. This is the fallen man syndrome. This purpose of Creator Speak at Sinai is to teach us fallen man syndrome and its ripple effects and its ramifications. And also, not just that, but how it can be navigated. How fallen man syndrome can be overcome, how it can be mitigated, how its effects can be mitigated and ameliorated and remediated. This is the key of the second of the four focuses of Creator Speak. The third is to develop in us redemption vision, the eyes of a redeemer, the thoughts, the mind of a redeemer, of a restorer, not as a critic, not as a judge, but as a redeemer, as one who has a Romans 8:28 mindset. How can we work this things together, this situation together, with all things to make good come forth? Also, with redemption vision, we get a present to forward-looking, even cross-generational, even cross-cultural, epoch restoration strategies, that we understand this is going to take a while, and it will be steps, but the wonderful counselor will lead us all the way. And fourth, the Sinaitic Creator Speak teaches us to establish and walk in and accept and flow in a headquarters communication network. We cannot do this independent. We're not supposed to do this independent of him. We are supposed to be in constant communication with him. And he's going to give us this model of the tabernacle with its associated briefing and accountability protocols, self-cleaning mechanism for the nation of the Holy One. Well, I want to kind of get on into this now. The first thing is that I should not forget is to sing our call to worship before we touch these actual words. So if you would join with me with the Baruchu. Baruchu Adonai Hamvorak. Baruch Adonai Hamvorak Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. And now would you open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see the wondrous things in your Torah. For we are indeed strangers in the earth, so do not hide your instructions from us. To join our story and progress, at the end of Parsha Yitro, the Holy One was speaking, and he will continue to speak. This Creator Speak in Parsha Mishpatim. But the final words of Parsha Yitro were this. After we ran away and he began to speak to Moshe alone, he tells Moshe, in every place where I record my Shem, my presence, my name, in every place where I reveal who I am, I will come to you and I will bless you. That is what he's going to do. He's going to come to us and he will bless us. And he says, if you choose to make me an altar of stone, a mizbeach havanim, then listen to me. Don't build it of hewn stone. Don't take your cutting instrument, your cherev, your blade, and begin to chip away and try to make it fit. No, every time your instruments, everything you chant, play, and all of your ideas, you pollute and corrupt what I'm doing. So don't do that. And don't go up by steps to my altar, lest your nakedness, your evratka in Hebrew, that which reveals how impure you are, is uncovered. Don't let that happen. Stay with my plan and my ways. You see, because of our flesh and pseudo-intellect flaws and limitations, when we think about doing tikkun olam, or fixing the world, or bringing healing and restoration into some situation or person's life, we must not do it according to our plan with our little knives and cutting instruments. We must do it according to his way. Otherwise, our nakedness will be exposed. Going on, in chapter 20, beginning this week's parsha, it starts out these words. Ve'ele, the Holy One speaking, this should be read in your Bibles. Ve'ele ha-mishpatim, and these are mishpatim, and that's a Hebrew word. It's often translated in English as judgments. These are the judgments, but that does not cover it. This is not an English translation, or it's not an English communication. This is Hebrew. And he says, these are and I'll give you a quick translation. These are the appropriate restorative courses of action in tikkun. To Mishpatim, appropriate restorative courses of action in tikkun that are revealed from heaven. Ve'ele ha-mishpatim asher tasim lifneim, that you are to set before their faces. These are to be before our faces at all time. If you ever want to do an idea of the Mishpatim and how they fit into the other parts of Scripture, look at Psalm 119 and look at what I call the Mishpatim sections. There are several verses in that psalm that talk about how important and what role the Mishpatim play in the psalmist's life. These things from Exodus 21:1 through middle of 23. These are the Mishpatim, and boy, does the psalmist ever express how valuable they are. Ve'ele ha-mishpatim asher tasim lifnehem. Are they before your eyes? Are you gazing into the beauty and the majesty of the wonderful counselors, techniques, and strategies? Well, mishpatim, a little more definition. Present and to future focused courses of action. Tikkun strategies. Things the Holy One says are necessary, appropriate, and advantageous in given specific situations and circumstances. Remember, we don't live in Eden. We're not in a utopia. That we are not experiencing the fullness of the 10 words and the picture that's being drawn by the 10 words. Instead, we deal with real people with real messes and real situations that are really fraught with danger and with difficulty. So in those situations, the Mishpatim are present to future focused courses of action. Tikkun strategies, things that are necessary, appropriate, and advantageous to bring about a healing, to advance the redemptive and restorative agenda of the Creator, to make us function, not just believe we are, to function as the Am Segilah, the special treasure people carrying the treasure of the Holy One, the Mamlaket HaKohanim, the kingdom of priests or royal ambassadors who carry the words and the messages and the healing, redemptive power of the Holy One. The Goy Kadosh, which carries the Kedusha energy that makes everything energized and empowered, and the Goy Gadol, the great nation that we're called to be. The Mishpatim are all part of that. Without it, we can't be the great nation. It's creative, empowering decrees and directions the Holy One gives that bring about a mixture of healing and restoration and bring about an improvement of potentially divisive or destructive situations. The kind of and quality of wisdom upon which a healthy and thriving nation or culture can be built. Foundational things about learning how to see real issues for what they are and what to cause and to blame, but not to focus on that, to focus on instead what can be done to make it better. All right. In the context of Torah, and particularly the Sinaitic downloads of Creator Speak, Mishpatim are our bridegroom king's sharing of his brilliant thoughts. His wise solution and resolution effecting decrees about the rubber meets the road kinds of issues that he knows are going to arise in the course of life on earth in the fallen world. If you think about what the Mishpatim are, they are what Messiah would think and do and prioritize when faced with the real challenges of real human life. Now, the key factor in the difference between Shaphat or Mishpatim and the way the world develops strategies is the focus of the Shaphat, of Mishpatim, is on the community and the greater good and the healing of creation and mankind's redemption, not on focusing on who did what wrong, not on the punishment that should be meted out to the injured, damage to the injuring party. The idea is compensating the victim and providing a means for the society to move forward. There's another Hebrew word that talks about judging, and that's din. And a beit din is a panel of judges. Now, the idea of the beit din, the idea of din as a verb in Hebrew means that you have to also take into account the wrongdoing, and you have to then separate out the wrongdoer from the other. That is not Mishpatim. Mishpatim says that we understand that, but the idea is not to punish, the idea is to heal. And therefore that healing of the community and of the injured and of the wounded and of the victim, as well as the bloodline of the people who did the wrong, these all must be considered. Now, that is the essence of the Mishpatim discourse. If we're going to be the Holy One's special treasure people and his kingdom of diplomatic corps and his kingdom a nation carrying his Kedusha energy, we must learn to resist and transcend fleshly revulsion, our self-serving and self-righteous judgments. We must learn to resist personal and cultural and ethnic biases and prejudices. We must learn to reject and resist sympathies as being our motivator, or sentiments as being our motivator, or pseudo-intellectual intelligence or arrogance as being our way of looking at things. We must rely upon him, humbly relying upon our King to tell us the wonderful counselor instructions. We must rely upon his government, his management, his ecosystem management understandings. See, divine problem solving, which is what the Mishpatim are all about, and what his plan for us is all about. We're to be divine problem solvers, not divine problem diagnoses. We're to problem solve. We're to be troubleshooters. And is not to use human reactions. We are not to sit and spend our time focusing on blame placing. We're not to give in to outrage or revulsion. We're not to ever think that our purpose is retribution or vengeance-flavored version of what we think of as social justice. We're not to think about moralizing as being our purpose, not ivory tower abstract conceptualizing. We are here to deal with the world as it is and make it better. We're here to deal with dramas and traumas, idiocy and injustices, and all those things, and not to overreact to them, and not to give in to them, or cave into them, or be swallowed up in them, but instead to stay above, to keep in touch with the Holy One, and follow his directions for meaningful interventions that are directed from on high. Strategically designed interventions that kickstart a redemptive, restorative process for everyone involved, all people, all bloodlines affected, and for the ecosystem in which we live. Now, the Mishpatim discourse will be chapters 21:1 through 23:22, and then we'll start something else. We begin to redirect our attention in this parsha to the promise of the land, that we are not always going to wander, that we're going to have a homeland, and that homeland is to be a base of operations. It is to be a beachhead for the coming of the kingdom and of the distribution of Torah, wisdom, and compassion, and the wonderful counselor identity of who the Holy One is from our homeland and our center point of focus, which is going to be Jerusalem. So he's going to talk about going to the land. Chapter 23, verses 23 through 55, is that right? 23 through 33, are going to be about the angel of the Holy One that will take us. But he will be with the angel. So it's not just the angel, it's him. He's going to be with the angel, around the angel. And so we are told to shema very carefully the guide that takes us to the promised land, that keeps us focused in that direction. And do what he says and not rebel against him, because the Holy One is in him and he is worthy and he is doing the thing. The third thing is we're going to have this beautiful narrative of what I call the banqueting table. Moshe will be called up, as along with 73 others, Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and then 70 of the elders of Israel, of the tribes, different tribes, will come up, and they will all go above the camp's level. That was at the base of Sinai. We'll go up till the cloud meets us, and then we will see the Holy One. Yes, we will gaze upon the Holy One. The 74 will gaze upon the Holy One and will not die. I know it seems crazy, but he will, in his invitation, according to his protocols, that is not a dangerous thing. We're going to find out it's not dangerous to be in his presence if we follow his protocols. And we're going to see, we'll eat and drink in his presence, and we'll find out how good and how wonderful he is and how his ways are all pleasant. And then Moshe will be called up, the fourth part, Moshe will be called up higher, alone into the fiery cloud. 40 days and 40 nights he will spend. And we'll talk more about that next week. But Moshe, I call it Moshe's magical mystery tour, will begin. And he will begin to be given the tablets inscribed by the finger of the Holy One. And he will carry that back to us now. In what attitude, with what mode he carries it back to us will depend on how much of the mercies of God he receives versus how much of the judgment. How much of what he gets is Mishpatim, and how much of what he gets is Din. Same problem we all have. How will we re-enter the world? With what attitude? Will we be cruel, harsh judges that throw down the stones and say you broke it all? Or will we say, okay, here's where we are. Let's get up, let's move on, and let's do the things according to the Holy One's protocols. The Mishpatim discourse, the Ele HaMishpatim. How beautiful. It's so much different than the worlds and the sociologists and the education systems and the religions' knee-jerk reactions to incidents and patterns of evil and injustice and sympathy and sensitivity and sensuality. So, imagine you are an ecosystem. Imagine you are like the Holy One. You have a system, a whole multi-generational institution to care for with life forces. How would you run it? With what levels? What would be your motive? Would you just be holding a ruler in your hand to slap people who do wrong things? Or would you be holding healing and medicine and redemption in your hands for those who suffer under the penalty, under the effects of those wrongdoers? Well, the Holy One's going to give us in his Parsha Mishpatim, in Mishpatim discourse, the Creator speak is going to provide 21 hypothetical situations of extreme brokenness, where bad things happen, where the world does not live up to the 10 words, where it is not Garden of Eden, and where we see bad things happen. 21 different situations. The situations may or may not reproduce themselves in your life, but the things that we learn from reviewing these situations are what we're to get. To understand what caused them, what are the pain and what hurts, what are the broken, how did they break you, how do these different situations cause trauma and drama to human beings, and then what do we need to do about that, and what are his instructions, and how do they vary depending on how we twist the situation a little bit. These are designed to awaken the neshama, the nishmat haim in us. Well, we'll talk about things like the Eved Ivri, the Hebrew servant. You say, what does that got to do with me? I don't have a Hebrew servant, don't want to. Oh, you are the Hebrew servant. This is part of our resume. We are all. He brought us all out of bondage in Egypt. We were all the Hebrew. We all identify with Yosef, right? The first of the Hebrew servants, who was sold into slavery by his brothers. And we all identify with them, and then every one of his descendants went through the same process. So don't think this is something, but understand, what is the wound? What scars? What wounds, what brokenness do we have as a result of that? And how could we find a way to heal and be restored? And how can we help others to do the same? And what are the consequences, and what are the prices, and what are the costs of doing each of these things? This is the way in which the Evidivri discussions are supposed to be interpreted. This is about revealing the wonderful counselor of the Holy One and learning that when people are broken by human trafficking and by abuse and oppression, what are the issues that we have to face? What are the challenges to their redemption and restoration? The next thing that he talks about would be the Yimkor Ish et Bato, when a man has to deal with finding a husband for his daughter. And these are real things. What are you, the panic, the fear that we won't find the right person and have to do something, try to make it happen. And so in this situation, the man will try to sell the girl as she's in before she reaches puberty to a household where he thinks she will be marry either the master of the household or his son or one of his children, and therefore improve her situation. Do you understand what it takes? What trauma? What drama, what issues, what brokenness is involved in those situations, what damage can be done. And then marriage in general, what is expected of a husband and a wife? That will be discussed in this context. What should a husband do for his wife? What are his obligations? Those are mentioned specifically in this parsha. It goes on. What happens if there's injury of a human being, either intentional or involuntary, by virtue of an accident that takes place, or an animal that gets loose, or a fire that breaks out? What happens if there's financial damage? What are the right ways to deal with when bad things happen in this world? Do we understand even the issues, how things hurt and how things affect families, how things affect bloodlines, how things affect geographical regions whenever they happen, and what plan do we have? What plan does the Holy One have to restore those things? Well, beloved, it goes on. There's so many matters. He talks about the different classes of people that deserve special attention, that we are to watch out for, yet not favor in regard to any issue. But we are to take care of them when we can, and we're to bless them. The poor, the foreigner, the widow, the fatherless. These are the four groups of people that, while we do not champion their cause when it's not just, or prefer them over other people, we do treat them differently. We give them the care, the attention, the respect that they need, and that sets us apart from the other nations. He's going to teach us about protocols of coming back into conversation and accountability with him. The 3 times we're to go up to Jerusalem once every year, 3 times every year at the harvest seasons. We're to go and become accountable and yet re-energize and re-empower ourselves by listening to his words. Well, there's so much more in this parsha. You go to the details of the daily studies if you want more detail. If you're ready for more detail today, if you have a few moments or a few hours to spend, I encourage you to do that. In the meantime, it's time for me to say goodbye. Blessings to you. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.